Okay, so I promise we did not plan it this way, that recording Thursday morning, the dawn of March Madness, I'm going to have the one guest with whom I make a promise every time. And this promise I'm not going to keep, that we will limit the UConn talk as favorites, as reigning national champions. Mike Mutnansky, formerly of WEEI, currently of the world-famous Mut Stack, almost 3,000 subscribers. We are going to talk UConn. I'm sorry, it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to come up. In the meantime, we have Patriots talk, the Dynasty, and another new segment called 15 Off the Field with my friend and yours, Mut. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I need to update those numbers. We're over almost 3,500 subscribers now at mutstack.com. Thanks to, among others, the Callahan fans out there that have followed along. And it's a great time of year. We got college basketball. We have baseball starting next week. We have all the draft rumors starting in the NFL. So it's a very good time to be a sports fan.
It's a great time to wake up and have it be a Friday, which is generally, right? Half of those Fridays are probably paydays for you and I at home. For me, it's always a Mut Stack day because you get insights into sports media, the Patriots, the Red Sox. And look, it sounds like I'm gassing you up. It sounds like I'm pumping your tires because you return here as a guest. Though I think you once wrote or texted me that I only call you when I'm, scraping the bottom of the barrel, which is not true.
True. That's true.
I thoroughly enjoy this. I think your writing has gotten appreciably better as you've done this now for about a year. I did check the subscriber number at the bottom. I did not mean to shaft you there. Almost 3,500 speaks for itself at this point. Moving forward, though, we're going to talk a little bit sports media again in the 15 off the field segment. This is YouTube exclusive. If you missed our last episode with Jeff Howe, you will only find that segment where we will do a non-Patriots topic with every guest on YouTube. Today, we are going to talk Boston sports media with Mut, who has a keen eye and perspective and history with the market, as well as where it might be headed next. In the meantime, as promised, a little bit of UConn, Patriots, the draft, and his final thoughts on the Dynasty. Okay, so the big question I sent you via email.
Yep.
A month to go until the draft. 5 weeks, if we're being exact. Patriots have the number 3 overall pick. Everyone wants to know, who are they going to take? Odds makers still say Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I say it'll be Jaden Daniels or Drake May. What are the odds that they already know between the two of them who they'll take in your mind?
Very low. I think they are going to be in a position where they're going to be flexible. And I don't necessarily love this idea, Callahan, but I think they're going to be open for business at 3. I think that if they have decided that one of these guys is not the guy, Daniels or Drake May, and someone comes calling with a massive boatload of picks, everything I've read about Elliott Wolf, everything I read about his track record suggests that he'll be open to trading that pick. So I think right now they're in a position of flexibility. Maybe some guys have leans where they want to go at quarterback, other guys, but like a consensus of who they want to take right now here in late March Madness time. I don't get that sense. How about you?
So I want to build a case for and against here today, and we'll have more quarterback talk. I should have mentioned in the front end with Carlos, another fan who donated to Boston Children's Hospital. Thank you, Carlos, in a new segment that we're continuing to recur, and we'll discuss with him more Jacoby Brissett related. The quarterbacks that everyone wants to talk about, not Jacoby Brissett, all due respect. These two, the case against them knowing is when we last spoke to Elliott Wolf at the Combine, he made the point. And what I think was largely a pretty open and honest press conference, not entirely, but as much as you can be in that type of situation, to say, we haven't even met with these quarterbacks yet.
Yeah.
How would we know definitively who we want to take if we've never sat in the same room as these players? Now, they've done that there. They will next week, according to Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, where Mayo, Wolf, Alex Van Pelt are going to go to North Carolina and LSU and meet with both of these quarterbacks. And I think whether it's Van Pelt or it's Wolf, even Mayo to a degree, they have an old school approach to this, right? Like, I want to get to know you. I want to see stuff on the board. Are you an alpha? How do you command a room, et cetera, et cetera? So to me, it would be hard for them to say, we really love Drake May more than Jaden Daniels if they've not been able to check those boxes that I think are important to them.
And I would say for me, just personally, of the two, I think I started this process as just an observer of these guys play in college, like, oh, Drake May's the guy. The Josh Allen comparisons, big arm, mobile. As the process has gone on, one of the guys that I follow, Matt Miller, NFL draft scout, he does some work at ESPN as well. I mean, his stock up on Daniels has been hot, and he's been way down on Drake May. And so I've sort of followed his approach here, where I Washington is likely to take a quarterback. If Daniels falls to them at the Patriots at 3, that feels better to me than Drake May at this point, because it does feel like his stock has gone down a little bit. And it's a weird group now. It feels like with Caleb Williams being the alpha of the quarterbacks, the rest of the three, like you look around, they sort of feel interchangeable, which is why I do think there's going to be some flexibility. If some team falls in love with a quarterback, the Patriots aren't in love with a 3. I'm not going to be shocked if they trade them. So personally, for me, I would lean Daniels if he's there at 3. And I'm sort of out on Drake May at this point. But I think the Patriots are probably still, like you said, trying to figure that out. And you mentioned Elliott Wolf.
Well, hold on. Fully out on Drake May. Mike Mutnansky right here, March 21st. Fully out.
If it's I guess fully out then. Yes.
Okay.
I'm fully out on Drake May. I'm fully out on Drake May as of whatever today's date is. First day of the NCAA tournament with the right to change my mind. But today I'm out on Drake May and in on Jaden Daniels. Either way, you mentioned Elliott Wolf. You said he was a very honest press conference. I guess you and I have a different version of the word weaponize, because there's been no weaponizing going on with the Patriots offense, unless you think KJ Osborne's one huge game he had NFL career is going to translate to some star wide receiver. So I have a bone to pick with him about that word and that use of that word in that space. But it's fascinating. I can't wait to see how it plays out. But yeah, right now, stock up Daniels, stock down Drake May. For me, guy in my basement talking on a camera on a Thursday morning.
Excellent. Always an expert, that person, talking politics, sports, conspiracy theories, which is more of the last part there. Let's go back to the trade part, though, because that seems to be your primary reason for why you think there is a case against this idea that I posed to you. Again, how likely is it the Patriots know who they want at number 3? And I'm going to build a case for after we finish here. But the Vikings threw a ton of coal into that furnace, built up this fire when they made a trade up to get a second first-round pick from the Texans, which most people noted, hey, they already had a first-round pick. So when you package that 11th overall selection plus 23, maybe a future first next year, that gets you into top 3, top 4 territory. I would argue that trade is more a reflection not of the Patriots situation, but the league at large going, yeah, we're in a J.J. McCarthy. We'll take your J.J. McCarthy stock. We will even take so much stock it costs us all these picks to move up and make that trade with the Texans. I don't agree with that from everything I've watched of J.J. McCarthy, and I'm kind of working my way back here towards the front. We're going to have full episodes dedicated to Jaden Daniels and Drake May coming up. Does that appeal to you, this 3 first-round pick kind of trade, personally, with the Vikings?
It's the issue. Like, I don't agree with it. Like, I still think that premium blue chip player that you can get potentially at 3, whether it's the quarterback or if they think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy there at 3, that blue chip player, they're just completely devoid of that on this team. Offensively and defensively, they've lost that top level of talent through some very tough years of drafting. Okay, that's why we're here right now with a 4-13 team who is desperate for talent. So I think that blue chip talent is the most important thing. And I guess the history would tell you that you're less likely to get that guy the further down you fall in the first round. And so I'm saying with my brain tells me that likely they're thinking about trading it because some team's going to overpay. But on its face, like, I still want that player at number 3. I want the most talented guy available, and I hope they're able to find that player. But like, I think that there's some buzz that teams are falling in love with these quarterbacks and might be willing to overpay. And Elliott Wolf, I think we're realizing now this is not a 1-year rebuild. Like, my big takeaway from these last couple of weeks has been, like, if you thought they were going to be right back at it with a rookie quarterback, like a Houston Texans type year, that ain't going to be this year. This is a 2 or 3 year rebuild. And if he believes that as well, he may believe in that value part of the pick. So I don't love it, but I don't know. I wouldn't bet against it right now if some team wants to overpay.
Okay, so that's where you're landing. Personally, you're rooting for the blue chip player, quarterback, receiver.
The player, but my gut tells me it's going to be a very Belichickian feel to let's accumulate picks.
Okay. Certainly was a Belichickian feel to free agency. And that roster constructions that you hinted on is the number one reason I think they already know who they're going to take their quarterback. But let's put a bow on this, because the fact that they wouldn't know, again, they're still gathering information.
Well, they don't control. My argument right back would be like, they don't control that. Like, if say they want one of the guys and he gets taken at 2, does that not automatically kick in the trade chip? Are they going to be in a Mac Jones position where they just take the last quarterback available, the top 3, like they did with Mac, the last of the top 5? If they pick their guy and I know you're arguing for it, but if they pick their guy and that guy's not there, how do you think it plays out?
It's a great question. And look, there are three different options here, right? They want Jaden Daniels and Jaden Daniels only. They want Drake May and Drake May only. And at that point, in either situation, you're just hoping this guy falls. We're going to have every reporter that we know, everyone in the DC area, in the DMV, asking, poking around, seeing what the Commanders are going to do, right? The third option is what you just referenced. We're happy with both. And there's some evidence to suggest that they are happy enough with both. I know there are folks high up in the front office who've told my colleague Doug Kai they do like all three quarterbacks at the top. And we're forgetting Caleb Williams. He's going to the Bears. He and Keenan Allen are already hanging out, going to Manhattan Beach in LA after his pro day. I made that part up, but he was at the pro day. Forget about it. And I think if you legitimately like both quarterbacks, that's fine. I think you understand you'll have to handle each of them differently because they're starkly different players.
Oh, yeah.
I just think here you probably lean one way or another. Though again, they're still gathering information. It's not going to be the workout you see on NFL Network and hyped up all over Twitter. Oh my God, look at this throw. We did this with Zach Wilson at BYU, lest you forget. Basically, every quarterback. Trivia question. Has there been a quarterback with a bad pro day throwing session? Like Teddy Bridgewater got a lot of crap, as far as you can remember, obviously, for wearing a glove. That was the best we could do from the pro day circuit criticism of the throwing workouts. They mean nothing. Do you remember anyone?
No.
Okay.
These guys, it's like every surgery, successful surgery, every pro day, great pro day, look great. People freaking out about Caleb Williams throwing a 60-yard, 70-yard pass yesterday. No, and I think Wolf is experienced enough that they're not going to buy into the hype of this stuff. And like you said, there'll be a second and third and fourth layer to their breakdown. But like I keep going back to they like both of them. I mean, they definitely like one of them better. If they like them both the same, I'd suggest that's an issue. And I hope they don't settle. I hope they don't settle and say, well, the guy we liked better, 70-30 is gone. Let's take the other guy. And that would lead to a trade I'm not thrilled about, but have some conviction with this pick and make a decision on this is the guy. If he's not there, here is our plan. And although I'm concerned about that because the plan in the offseason has not been great if you're a Patriots fan. So the plan on draft night, I hope, is a little more concise and focused.
Yeah. That reminds me your point about weaponizing the offense.
Oh,
yes, thoroughly underwhelmed. I don't think their needs in a way that they absolutely do with the draft. Receiver, offensive tackle, super deep class at both of those positions. For agency, not as much. They took a big swing at Calvin Ridley. They missed. I'm not giving them credit for a single or even a hit by pitch. They're out. Ridley's in Tennessee.
Good.
I just think the ability to weaponize the offense fully in free agency was never on the table. Hunter Henry was the best tight end. They're not adding another running back, and the one they added is just fine. It's more of a long-term process there. The fact that they need and know that they need to do that is separate from we're going to do this in 3 weeks. And even if they did pay for everyone, you'd still go, they don't really have a number one receiver. It's Calvin Ridley. But it's a fair point because I brought up.
I agree with you on the Ridley, but there's still the fear that this group, like the previous group, does not understand you have to pay probably above what I'm sure they set a price for everything. We all in life set a price. I want to spend this for a pair of sneakers. You walk into the New Balance store, it's like, oh, I like these a lot. They're more expensive. Well, sometimes you have to go above and beyond. And I'm not sure this group so far has shown the willingness to do what the Belichick group would, which is pay a premium for elite talent. I know this topic comes up later on in the famous Andrew Callahan rundown for this show, so I don't want to go crazy on it. But if you were fearful that Bill Belichick didn't respect elite offensive talent, there is nothing to suggest this group in the first couple of weeks here, first month or so, feels any differently, as far as I can tell.
You know you're a dad of two when you're making a sneaker analogy, and the first store you think of is New Balance. I'm just going to leave.
I'm a New Balance guy. I love New Balance. Love New Balance. You got to put a pair of dads on, go mow the lawn with the old ones. The new ones turn into the lawn mowing ones. Oh, that's a good day. That's good.
I know the big chunky white ones with the solid blue end in the middle await me in my future in 15, 20 years. Just God help me that maybe it's a little bit longer than that. Anyway, this has gone off the rails. Let's wrap up here as far as the case that they do not know, right? Again, they don't know the trade offers, as you point out. Maybe someone comes in a couple of weeks. It's a Godfather offer from Minnesota. It's not 3 first-round picks. It's 5, and you can rent Justin Jefferson for half the season. They need to gather more information. Again, they'll be at pro days next week. They will probably have these quarterbacks in for top 30 visits. And there's going to be deliberation within the front office. These are a lot of college scouts, college scouting directors. Elliott Wolf, obviously. Alonzo Highsmith just entered the picture. People are going to have differing opinions about who they like better. You need to settle, not necessarily on a consensus, but get close to one. The fact that they have so many voices in there and people watching tape for two very, very good players, okay, liking one versus the other does not mean the other one's bad. It's going to take some time. Here is the case, however, for the Patriots no, and they're just dotting their I's and they're crossing their T's. Are you ready?
Okay, ready.
So let's start with the Mass Live report that they know they're going to take a quarterback at 3, which would indicate either, again, they like one or the other, or they like both of them enough. At which point that is built upon at least 2 years of film study, 2 for Drake May, many more for Jaden Daniels, who obviously developed and took this giant leap into a quarterback over the last year.
Yeah, once he transferred, he became a different quarterback. Yes.
Right. And even honestly, the second year at LSU, very different from the first one. You could talk about the environment, comfort in the system, all that different stuff, but very, very different player. The other part about this is how they built. Jacoby Brissett is obviously not a long-term starter. Obviously, he signed a 1-year deal. Any freakouts about him need to stop right now. The situation around him, not built for a rookie quarterback, but it is a slow burn to what will be a long-term rebuild, saying we're going to take a quarterback. And between the two of them, when you look at the size that Drake May has, the arm, the ability and willingness to extend plays, a la Jordan Love, a la Aaron Rodgers. You want to even go back to Brett Favre. Oh, and don't forget Baker Mayfield, who was the most recent quarterback that Elliott Wolf, quote unquote, drafted outside of New England when he had a leading voice in the front office. He did not have a leading voice when Mac was selected. All of these guys create plays, have bigger arms, and a kind of moxie to them, which you might shake your head at. And I would have once upon a time when you think about what's important for a quarterback. Old school guys like this value that stuff a lot. And knowing that Drake May impressed them in the interviews, I would bet at least right now he has the lead on Jaden Daniels, given the history of the front office, given the way that they built so far, the reporting that's been out there, that he's got a head start to be their next guy, if, of course, he's available number 3.
Yeah, it's fair. And if that's the case, again, they're in a position where they better figure out what Washington's going to do. Like I think we both think they're going to take a quarterback. So their due diligence here on what the Commanders are going to do is going to put them in a position to be best equipped to either take the guy they want to take. If that's Drake May, he wouldn't be my favorite of the two. I get it. If it's not going to be him, my argument is just don't settle. And here's the good thing about the Commanders. Like Adam Schefter is tied into them deeply. We'll know. I think we'll have an idea through Schefter what they're going to do. So the Patriots will certainly know, if we know in the public, what they're going to do it to.
Well, I would tell you if Bill was still around, he would know because he knows Schefter and the two of them have a long-standing relationship, and that would have been a big help. Not to mention the Patriots claim, at least, that they knew Washington would take Emmanuel Forbes, which gave them this great confidence to trade back and still get Christian Gonzalez, who you probably should have traded up for instead of trading back. Granted, they got him all together. Good pick. Supposedly, we'll see. Great player. Moving on. Again, I just think at this point in the process, there is more information to be gathered. The ink is dry and all of the tape, the measurables, all of the scouting. And that's not just looking at the tape. It's the scouts going to campus, asking around. Before last season started, the Patriots were very well aware they might take and need to take a quarterback in 2024. So this scouting of Drake May and Jaden Daniels might have started for the rest of us in the last couple of months. The Patriots have been on this for more than a year. It's a new era, not just for the Patriots, but for the Pats Interference Podcast, brought to you now by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in America. I'm making player picks, watching the Celtics, points, rebounds, and I get to test my skills like you can on PrizePicks this season because it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. And then here's the best part: quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types, which all make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app, plus a review policy, which means you get your money back in case of injury, the only DFS platform to offer an insurance policy. Again, PrizePicks has been a ton of fun with the Celtics. You can also go with the Bruins, any number of different sports, games, players, plays, and options. So right now, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So you already gave this away. The next question, which quarterback you want them to draft? You're fully on Jaden Daniels.
Yes, I'd be on Daniels. I like the transformation he made there at LSU. I like the accuracy. I like the athleticism. I'm a fan of his. And as much as I've sort of bought into the late reporting on Drake May, maybe being hyped up and not really should be included in the top, although it's a top one. Caleb's a top one. He has the measurables that are close to Josh Allen, but they're not quite at the Josh Allen level. And I think he's benefited from being sort of compared to Josh Allen in a lot of cases. That being said, wouldn't be worried about him because Mitch Trubisky sucked out of North Carolina. I've heard this terrible commentary because Drake May went to Chapel Hill and Mitch Trubisky sucked, that somehow Drake May is going to suck. It's the dumbest argument ever. If you don't want to like him, that's fine. It can't be because the school he went to has recently produced an overrated quarterback. That is stupid. We should move beyond that. That being said, I want the kid from LSU. We'll see if he's there at 3.
I'm so glad you said that because that came up, I want to say, at BST last month, and it was sparked by a Phil Perry report that he had talked to an offensive coordinator. He said, "Oh, Drake May's the next Mitch Trubisky," and this came up, and I said, "This is what you just said, the dumbest comparison."
Comparison. He's a big, oh my god,
good-looking white dude who played the same position at the same school, and Felger goes, "Oh, so this offensive coordinator doesn't know what he's talking about." As if I could make that judgment on anyone who has one take and you just want to render them a moron. Like, I would be a moron a billion times over with all of the bad takes that I've had over the years. Not to mention, I don't know the identity of this person. What I will say, though, is that that is a flawed process. And the same thing you go for CJ Stroud. Should have been a flop because Justin Fields hasn't panned out, or Dwayne Haskins, RIP, or any number of Ohio State quarterbacks, Braxton Miller, you keep going on and on. Well, they didn't pan out. Why wouldn't this guy? Well, they're all different human beings, and the NFL is a different game to each of them than it was in college. Moving on. I am curious, though. You mentioned Matt Miller. We all have our voices that we trust. Sometimes we're spending more time on YouTube or with Game Film or with Stats or PFF. We've never had more information, whether someone else's takes or the hard data that's out there. And it's all a very subjective process. Where do you like to go to form your opinions? Because I think, we all echo things that we hear or trust, but I'm interested in the process where you land on, I think this information is good. I think this person is good, and that's good enough for me.
I don't know. Is there really a guy who's nailed the quarterbacks? I'd have to go back and think about it. I think.
Well, they're not in the NFL. I can tell you that because, everyone will tell you, inexact science. It's subjective. There's no consistent history of doing this. It's very difficult. Not to mention it's relying on environment and all those things. But continue.
I think Matt Miller, NFL Draft Scout, who's had his own publication, is now doing some ESPN stuff. Is someone I look at. I'm gonna Lance Zierlein, based out of Houston, NFL Network. Like, if you go back and look at his quarterback analysis and his draft analysis, I think maybe he knows someone in Houston, but he sort of nailed the Stroud thing last year when everyone says Bryce Young is this. I think he really had that. So he's someone around draft time that I look at. So those two sort of stand out to me. But I'm again, I'm consuming it all. I'm just an idiot. I want all the information I can. Oh wow, Caleb Williams threw a football far. I'm watching that. It's because your team is invested in quarterback. I'm watching all of that. But those would be two names that stand out as guys who this time of year, I feel like they have a good sense and good projection of what's going to happen.
Gotcha. I have my guys, but look, in this position over time.
Why can't say your guys then? Hold on.
Well, no, here's the thing, because I do my best to steer clear of full-on scouting reports or draft guides until I've made my own assessments. I don't want them to introduce some sort of bias or leaning to my own work. Same as when I'm doing film breakdowns. I will sit here at this same stupid desk for 10 hours and get up and walk around, get a drink, and come back and then publish it on Monday nights during the season before I go read anybody else's. And then I will probably curse because someone else had something else that I didn't have. But that's just how the job works when you're working in an incredibly competitive field with a lot of smart people. And as far as the draft goes, a lot of them are going to be smarter than me, but I will have my definitive takes and analysis on Drake May and Jaden Daniels when I've finished all of the film study, and then, might be swayed here or there, but we'll also have some draft experts on this podcast coming up. I will say the folks at the top, Daniel Jeremiah's opinion, I think, should hold a lot of weight with a lot of people, and that's an obvious take. But he's someone who's, I will say, mock drafts or top 50, I peek at and try to limit it as best I can to that. Okay, I want to get to the dynasty real quick, and then we're going to get to all the mailbag questions here, running them down. You wrote about this last week after the release of episode 9 and 10. I have expressed that I think the most common sentiment, which is this is a Belichick hit piece, is not nuanced enough for what it really is. But you have spent a lot more time writing about this and thinking about it. So why don't you go ahead from here?
And I don't want to forget real quick, Greg Cosell, ESPN NFL matchup show, when he does the film stuff on quarterbacks, also really good. And Darius Butler, former UConn product, former Patriot.
I find UConn talk. What do we give ourselves? Like 24 minutes? We waited.
I have thoughts on this Auburn matchup in the Sweet 16. Yeah, I watched all 10. I wrote about all 10. I've consumed the reaction to all 10. And I'm actually going to write about it again on Friday. I thought I was done writing about it, Callie, and I got to be honest. I'm not done writing about it because I have leftover thoughts about the series in general and the way it made me, the way it ended, the reaction to it. And I will tease this for Friday's 4-pack. You said conspiracy theorist earlier. I've been workshopping a kind of ridiculous conspiracy theory that I'm going to lay out tomorrow. It probably means nothing. It's probably the dumbest thing I've ever written. It'll be in mutstack.com Friday 4-pack tomorrow. Ties into Belichick and this thing and the timeline of when we found out about this and when the reports of Belichick not coming back all sort of came together. I'm going to try to piece it together tomorrow at mutstack.com on Friday.
I'm so excited. The dumbest thing you've ever written. I want it now. I want you to read it aloud. I want to do an audio version to listen on my way to pick up my wife at work later today.
So stupid that I didn't even text you about it because I want you to read the stupidity.
Okay.
And it probably means nothing, but I'm obsessed with this idea. I had somebody who's worked on the Patriots beat text me a question and it led me down this stupid road. That's for tomorrow. It was a Belichick hit piece in the sense that it was so pro-craft, it just made Belichick look very poorly. And I think Bill's insistence not to take part in it hurt this entire thing. This is something I'm going to write about on Friday. Maybe Bill sniffed out that this was a bad time for this. He saw the sort of the writing on the wall of how it was going to play out. Maybe he had issues with the way the film was being made. It wasn't NFL films. We know Bill is a big NFL films guy. This is Matt Hamachek, director of the Tiger documentary. This is not NFL films. But Bill not being more playful on camera hurt the thing. And Kraft being so open about his feeling, Bob Kraft in particular, being so open to his feelings on Bill without Bill responding, just made it feel very, very one-sided. And I went into this, admittedly, as someone who read The Dynasty by Jeff Benedict and first finished the book and texted a friend and said, this feels like it was written by the Krafts. Like it was very pro-Kraft. Even that book was. So I came into the documentary wanting to be the same. I thought it was. I thought Bill, if he's more involved, it probably would have helped it out more. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that they just made this thing way too early. Like it sat with me for a couple of days now. Like did they have to do this now? Did they have to do? Was it really to help Robert Kraft get in the Hall of Fame? Was it because of his? I don't know. But this should have been 5 or 10 years down the road. Players on the team last summer that were going to be back for this year should not have been interviewed about this. It didn't make sense for the entire process. It felt rushed. The timing felt weird. And as a viewer, Bill Belichick comes across minimized. And I think Robert Kraft is propped up by what is reported and what's not reported. To not include in episode 9 and 10, the Brady contract stuff is embarrassing. Like you're either not doing your homework or you're trying to spin the story a certain way. I am rambling because I've become obsessed with this thing. I apologize. But if you're a Patriots fan who didn't like it, I totally understand. I totally get it.
You and I land in the same place, I think, overall, giving it, like a C+, I think you wrote. And I've said elsewhere. And that's because, one, I could not make a better documentary. Like, it's easy to go in and criticize this strictly as a viewer, but as someone who's in the media and documented the history in real time.
Stop. We're not going to do this thing. Like I used to, it's radio hosts that you say, I can't question Bill Belichick in football. Yes, you can. If you're not going to include Rodney Harrison at all in this thing, I can question your filmmaking, but go ahead.
The point is the balance of stories that have been advanced as far as they can, which was their reason/excuse for not including more in Super Bowls 38 and 39, is fair given how dense this is. And a lot of people have made the point of, who is this for? My bottom line is this. I was bummed because I was obviously excited to relive parts of my childhood, upbringing, and share this with my wife as a way to say, hey, this is pretty much why I do what I do. My love of football, all of the greatest stories that I've ever witnessed in sports are going to be here in 10 parts. We'll watch this together. And the first couple were great, and things went downhill from here. And the pro craft flavor is absolutely baked in to all parts of this. The point you make about Bill being an unwilling participant, though he did sit supposedly for 3.5 hours, means he contributes to the bottom of what this kind of craft propaganda is at the bottom. Like he is partially responsible for this. And I've said it before, the doom part of his personality, which he got that nickname in the 80s before he got to New England, before he became the Patriots head coach, was inseparable from the genius. Like this is who he is, right? Around the building, walking around just as a human being. But he could have turned it on here and did not. That made it suffer. I think the obvious slant, again, some of Kraft's comments about, raising why Malcolm Butler was benched. Oh, I heard it was a personal issue. Well, what was it? Say it. You can't stop there. Was altogether disappointing in addition to eliminating certain parts where, again, it's a difficult time to encapsulate. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're unable to be criticized or that would be unfair to them. Absolutely it would. But whole episodes dedicated to Spygate and Deflategate and Aaron Hernandez and then basically Malcolm Butler. There wasn't enough football in there. There wasn't enough connective tissue within the storytelling, aside from the stuff they obviously wanted to thread through all these episodes. Belichick breaking it at the end, his bad relationship with Brady, and Kraft just trying to keep it together as best he could.
Just trying to keep it together.
And that was the clear intent, and that was a bummer.
And I will say to your point, like that the argument that I heard Hamachek make on the Greg Hill show on WEEI that they exhausted the football's been the 3 games to glory. Yeah, so is Spygate, and you spent an entire episode on that.
Yes,
and that's been exhausted. You wanted to cover certain topics, and I see you. I know you don't know Belichick, but you covered him enough where you're better equipped to answer this than I am. Is he going to respond? Do we ever get a Belichick rebuttal via himself, a book, media member to push back against this? Or was the Ernie Adams inclusion, was that Bill's pushback against Kraft in this whole thing?
I would bet a large amount of money, an irresponsible amount of money. He will have a book one day.
I like that.
Okay. That's going to come. The history matters to him, but I think you're right. He sniffed out what this was going to be, the intention of it. However deep the Kraft's hands were in this, they were in and around it. They were going to have more control and say, and more fingerprints than Bill ever would. So he participated, but did basically a bare minimum. It's like he just condensed all of his press conferences into one sit down with the documentarian. But Bill will not have the Dynasty in context report, right? Like that's just not that's not going to happen because his default, whenever things would come up and speaking with people in the team, was just don't react, don't give it any power, don't do anything, let it wash away because people will forget. And honestly, the longer this has gone on, he has looked better and better because of how common, again, the take has been that this has been a Bill hit piece. I will not go as far to say hit piece because he is partially responsible for his own. He is fully responsible for his own behavior and words in this. Granted, he didn't have the editorial control, which Devin McCourty and Rodney Harrison rightfully complained about. Hey, I sat down for 5+ hours and all you get me is saying F him, F him, F him if you're Rodney Harrison, or Devin's only contribution is really slamming Bill for the Trump letter. Like, he'll have a book. He won't specifically respond to this. And again, C+. I was bummed. I'm moving on.
Good.
Okay, speaking of moving on, let's do the mailbag. 5 questions here, and then we're going to do our separate segment. It's YouTube exclusive. You want to hear Mut on what's next in Boston sports media or the landscape or some whispers and nuggets, which are always in the Mut stack, go to our 15 off the field segment, which again is only on YouTube and separate from this episode. Question number 1, Liam says, the focus in the draft will be quarterback, offensive tackle, receiver, hopefully. Any remaining free agents, though, that you would like to see the Patriots sign to fill out the roster elsewhere?
Can I include trades in this, or is that a trade?
Sure. Like, I mean, it's not a free agent, but I've got a couple names, so go ahead.
Well, I guess let's look at the same team. Like if the Bengals are going to trade T. Higgins, the Patriots should be involved. He is a borderline 1-1A receiver, big outside receiver. They weren't in on Mike Williams. They weren't in the Keenan Allen trade, which, again, the reporting on that, if I'm to believe, is crazy. They talked to the Chargers the day before, didn't ask about Keenan Allen. Even to help along for a year. You're shaking your head. It didn't happen that way?
No, they checked in all of their obvious trade candidates. And those conversations happened, and Doug Kydes had the reporting on that, and that stands as it was initially reported.
Gotcha. What about Tyler Boyd in Cincinnati? So he's a free agent. He's the third guy there. I don't know if he's the number one, and maybe we're just collecting, second and third receivers. But when they've had injuries there, whether Jamar Chase has gone down, Higgins has gone down, Boyd has stepped in that void and been a pretty good receiver there. And he's better than KJ Osborne. He's not going to cost a lot of money. So I'm been assessed the wide receiver position because they need to be in a position to, set up their quarterback. Say they take quarterback at 3. We think it's going to happen. Set them up for success. Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, Hunter Henry. They don't do that. They're still short that top end talent, even as a group. They're underwhelming. Maybe the worst receiving group in the AFC East still with the additions they've made. I want a receiver. Trade for T. Higgins. Sign Tyler Boyd. Those two guys stand out to me. There are other names that might be available in and around the draft time to be traded. I'd be signing a wide receiver or trading for one.
Poor Liam. Liam wanted to know about every other position except for quarterback, receiver, and offensive tackle.
No, I don't. That's it. I'm sorry, Liam. I'm obsessed. You should be too. Do you watch the NFL? It's about offense now. It's about high-end talent, wide receivers, mobile quarterbacks, high-flying. I'm not talking June Jones run and shoot, but the offense is king now. I don't care about anything else. Just feed me offense. Spoon feed me like applesauce when you're sick as a kid. Put the medicine in and feed me the offense. That's all I care about. That's all you care about. Offensive line, nobody cares. Defense, nobody cares. Special teams, there's a special teams question on this list I saw. I don't care. I care about offense. Give me a receiver. Next question.
So you're happy with the Patriots free agency so far as what you're
No, it's the same as always. It's sign their own. They're 4-13 and they're bending over backwards to bring back players from a 4-13 team. No, I don't like. How can you like what they've done so far?
All right, I'm teasing. I need to give Liam an answer, though. And he cited, for example, Justin Simmons, 30-year-old safety, leads the league in interceptions. I think it's since 2016. I like Justin Simmons. I think that would be a fine signing. I think he is someone, though, who's going to want it naturally top dollar, given his production and his resume. He'll probably want to go to a winning team, given his age. And so that's going to be a hard sell. Now, I do think the Patriots need a free safety who can work single high, where you don't want Jabril Peppers living or Kyle Duggar setting up camp for an entire game. That said, Levi Wallace, I like as a backup corner, someone who has been around the league. They're familiar with a little bit more of his own player. Charles Leno Jr., though, is number one on my list. I get that I just broke the rule again. Liam doesn't want to talk about offensive tackles. You need more depth there. You cannot go in with Chukwuma Okorafor, Mike Onwenu, and your fingers crossed, Calvin Anderson, Vidarian Lowe, all that, in addition to probably a late first or early second round pick, and just think that's good enough. It's not. They need to be better. And if they fail to improve that position going into training camp, it's exactly that. It's a failure. Next question. Similar. Sal wants to know, quote, after missing out on their big needs, tackle, receiver, and free agency, and no more real options, how about a best player available approach to make use of the remaining 51, not $15 million in cap space? Seems like the best free agents left are corner and safety, and those are certain secondary needs, no pun intended.
Again, I default to bring me a wide receiver. You get what I don't. Is it a high price wide receiver? I mean, Braxton Berrios was an all pro punt returner, kick returner last year. I think he's still available in Miami. He'd be at the top of my list. He's the one that got away. Well, there you go. So cross.
All right, let me take this because it's defense. You're on the record. Don't care. We're moving on. We'll keep it quick. I mentioned Levi Wallace. A lot of folks are going to bring up Stephon Gilmore. He turns 34 in September. If the Patriots want to run a man-to-man operation here, I think he's only got 12 to 15, maybe 20 snaps a game in him left in that capacity. Obviously, they can play zone, and he's a smart player, and he's been building over the last 5 years a borderline Hall of Fame place. I don't think he's going to get there. I just think his timeline does not fit here. His style of play is just past his prime in that capacity.
You want him next year. Like we both agree, this is sort of a transition year for the team. They're not really winning, and
they're going to play young players.
The argument would be you bring him in here to like bring Christian Gonzalez along and like show him how like a future Hall of Famer works. But I don't know. Again, wide receiver, please.
Julian Blackmon is another name, top of the market, week 2 of free agency. Safety, been with the Colts. He pivoted to being more of a box player over the slot last year, but in his first 3 years in the league, had played more free safety. He timed 4.46 at the combine. So again, I don't think that raw speed is there. One misstep and you're in trouble as a single high free safety. But if you want to talk about corners, safeties to watch, he's got a deserved mention. And so, yeah, I like it. Again, I would keep in mind they're going to play the young players. They told us that. That's the philosophy, the Packer way, all that. Okay, this is up your alley. Adam, quote, thoughts on what Dove Kleiman tweeted today about the Patriots pursuing trades for wide receiver help, specifically your boy T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk.
Yes, and yes. Elite offensive talent. Now, who did Dove take that tweet from? That's the question.
Well, let's stop there because my understanding, I've checked this once, probably should have doubled back, but the only fresh quote unquote reporting, and this isn't to dismiss Adam Kaplan, who's had a very long, strong career, much longer than I have, and done a lot more reporting than I have around the NFL. But for Pro Football Network said a source told him that the Patriots have an obvious need at receiver, and they've been looking at top options there, possibly on the trade market. Looking is doing a lot of heavy lifting right there, right? I think the Bengals are going to keep T. Higgins because that's what the franchise tag is for. Brandon Ayuk, I would be surprised if the Niners want to trade him. But if it's a late first round value or a second and something else, I mean, they'd have a lot of competitors for his services. I would just, again, take into context, it's not a reporter putting that out. And it's a report that's kind of,
and they're all. It's a report from an account that just sort of repurposes other people's reports. So I'm all for
which is in and of itself kind of an observation, right? The Patriots.
That's like me. So who is Craig who asked the question, or is it Craig?
Adam.
It's any elite offensive talent available, and I've heard the Justin Jefferson thing. I believe, just correct me if I'm wrong, Callahan. He's only got 1 year left. You call it like a half-year rental for him. Obviously, he's the top end talent. If you could trade for Justin Jefferson, you could trade for him and know that he wanted to be here with your quarterback at 3 and he's committed to being here. And I mean, in a second, like that's what they are lacking, comically lacking. So I am all for all this trade. I would deal draft picks. I would clear cap space, whatever you have to do to get that blue chip elite offensive talent. I don't believe you can get by with running the football and throwing it to Antonio Gibson out of the backfield. So yes, bring me all your elite offensive talent.
Would you give up a UConn Huskies first round loss to a 16 seed to make that happen?
For Justin Jefferson?
Yeah. Eternal shame.
No, I would take a Final Four loss to Arizona in Phoenix.
Oh, come on. Final Four loss is a great season. I don't
blame it Arizona in their backyard. I like to be at the final. So no, I would not do it for a first round. I'm not going to lose to no, thank you. No.
I bet you do it for Sweet 16 though.
No, I want to see him get to the final. I want Hurley at the Final Four yapping at people. That's what I want.
Good man. Good Husky. Okay, you're going to love this question, which is a good one. I want to say on the record, but just not interesting to you. All teams will be required to take an international pathway player in 2025. This is from Dave. Should the Patriots just get ahead of this and sign an international pathway kicker in 2024 to compete with Chad Ryland and or add to their practice squad for depth? Dave, I would say Chad Ryland should have some competition, absolutely, in training camp, whether or not they come from Ireland, which has this new surge of specialists. I don't know if they're competing with Australia, the land of kangaroos and punters who like to take a small jaunt before they boot the ball and have it spin in ways that apparently are only possible south of the border. But, yeah, sure. I would say get ahead of it. Jakob Johnson obviously was a big success story for them, coming as the last player in the roster in 2019, then taking over for James Devlin midway through that season. Got hurt himself that year, but hung around, went to Vegas and got a second contract. So, yeah, I would say why not? If you're going into the program, find a guy who plays a position of need.
Well, you said it all right there. What can I add to international kicker talk here on the Callahan podcast?
What country would you want this player to come from? If you got to pick that.
Well, doesn't Australia, like you said, have the history of like rugby kickers who come over
Yeah,
here
like,
and
give me something new. I would say I want Sebastian Vollmer came from Germany.
Germany,
Obviously,
yeah,
big
Germany,
hulking
yeah.
dude. Only played a few seasons at Houston. They take him in the second round of whatever that draft was. Everyone's going, what the hell are the Patriots doing? Are they that bored with winning? They're just going to pull these German nationals and throw them at right tackle. Of course, it works. I want a big, burly offensive lineman from somewhere in the Baltics. I get that that's not in and around Germany. Just somewhere around there. Like, he could also have a different career path as a part of World's Strongest Man. Pluck one of those guys, sign them. You need the help at offensive line. I just made the case. If it's a position of need, you might as well sign them from there. There's a guy waiting up there who could bench 800 pounds. I sign him.
Yeah, growing up before the internet, and you kids listening and watching don't know this, but you had to watch like sports on TV, and sometimes you just watch them because they were on. So they had like the Strongest Man on there. So if you're telling me there's a Magnus von Magnus who's like that big and jacked, I'm all for it. But other than that, I'm allowed to say it now. I don't care.
Okay, you're going to like this one. Last question, and then we'll get you out of here before, again, we do the 15 off the field segment. Boston Sports Media Talk, YouTube exclusive, and Carlos is coming up here on the podcast, YouTube and on any audio streams, wherever you find your podcast. This is from Kurt. Kurt wants to know, if this season is not going to be super competitive and I have to watch more Jacoby Brissett than I prefer, ... Mut and Andrew, any good new beer suggestions or breweries to help me along the way?
It's not necessarily new, but I live in the Chelmsford, Lowell, Tingsboro area. In the last year or so, they've created like you can make a day out of this. So these are all 3 local places, and I'm adding a bonus pizza place. I'm gonna tie this all together. But just off Route 3 now, you can start at Joni's Pizza, which Dave Portnoy famously graded like 9 something, and it's got the best pizza in the area. Okay, and then from there, Navigation Brewing downtown Chelmsford just opened. Beautiful new downtown spot. Chelmsford as a downtown needs to be refurbished anyway, but Navigation downtown. Then right up the road, Route 4 is a small place called Modest Roots. New place just moved from Tingsboro, like North Chelmsford, Tingsboro area. And then you can cap it off with Epigram, which is right near the Pheasant Lane Mall. So we went from having 0 breweries in this like Middlesex area to having 3 in the span of a year, plus an amazing pizza place. You can make a day out of it. That's what I'd suggest. Put the wife and kids in the car, say we're going for a ride. There you go. The little Middlesex brewery tour you can do yourself.
That was by far your best answer of any question to the man saved for the end. It had nothing to do with football or the Patriots. God love you. I have 2. One, you will always hear me say this. They've been great to me, and they have tremendous beer, and they get very creative with the chances they want to take and try. They've been incredibly successful. They have a new brick and mortar out in Plymouth. Vitamin C, vitamin SEA. Get down to vitamin C if you ever have a time of a minute, or want to come to what will be a pre-draft event coming up next month. More details to follow. Yes, the second one I would suggest, and I've actually never been there, but in going to Portland, this was actually 2020 for a weekend with my now wife, bounced around a bunch of breweries, liked a lot, didn't really fall in love. And the last stop we went was I want to say a beer store that had a small bar inside, and you got to pick, obviously. So I was like, okay, I'll have something I haven't had before. Okay. Epiphany by Foundation is a Maine IPA. It is delicious. So if you ever have a chance, you like IPAs, again, we're a couple months away from that. Pick up an Epiphany by Foundation or go visit them in Portland, because that is still one of the tastiest beers I've ever had, second to, Vitamin C's and some stuff from Trillium, where you can find me, here and there around the city. But that's what we got. All right.
I tried to give the reader something different, and you gave them Portland, which is like the greatest beer city in the country. So
I gave them Weymouth, now Plymouth. Yes, Portland. And where else is Trillium? Yeah, Trillium's bound around Canton.
They are
4 points. Yeah. Okay. All right. He is Mike Mutnansky. Subscribe to the Mut Stack. Almost 3,500 subscribers worldwide. It is free. And it is packed with great info. Start your day every Friday with that. Gambling notes, Patriots talk, the Dynasty, sports media info, ratings, Red Sox, Celtics, everything in there. Mutt, I will see you here in a quick break. 15 off the field. What's coming up next in Boston Sports Media? Thank you, sir.
Sounds good, buddy.